Welcome to Unico Desde 1979. Today, a collaboration cigar review with Mike from Sydney Cigar Boys. Say hello, Mike.
Sydney Cigar Guys. Hey guys, how are you? Good to be on the show for the first time. I've been hounding Sam for a couple of months now to do a cigar review together. And yeah, so a nice one to come in on the Matt Booth and Robert Caldwell Hit and Run new release. Just came out a couple of months ago at IPCPR. So should be in the stores now. Let's have a little look.
And we had one of these about, 2 months ago. What were your first impressions, Mike?
Yeah, nice cigar, great construction, amazing burn and quite a nice draw. Through the first third, found a lot of pepper. I'm expecting to see something similar today, but it'll be interesting after a couple of months in the humidor to see how these have settled down.
I sort of experienced a bit of a dryness on the palate with a bit of pepper and spice. I mentioned dryness just then, but quite a dry cigar. So, like you, very keen to see how these have progressed with at least a couple of months in the humi. But let's get underway, shall we?
Yeah, they've done a great job on the presentation. The everything looks great. The artwork looks fantastic. A little more on the muted colours than Matt normally does, but yeah, it looks very presentable. Let's give it a cut.
Light these bad boys up. Great draw from the start. Noticed, besides that gust of wind that sort of threw us off a little bit there, we are outdoors. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Bit of cloud around, about 22, 23 degrees. Lovely day in Sydney for a cigar review. So thanks for joining me, Mike.
My pleasure.
And to the millions of fans out there tuning in once again, Mike and I go way back to probably meeting at Bogart cigar events. Probably 8 years ago, quite easily.
Yeah.
Any first impressions from the light?
Yeah, just trying to get my head around this. As you mentioned, a nice draw. Some of the flavours, I'm still getting a little hint of the spice and the pepperiness coming through. It doesn't seem quite as pronounced as the first one we had a month or two ago. Yeah.
I agree. I've got a bit of pepper there, and I mentioned before that my overall impression for the first time we had this cigar was that it was a very dry cigar. Not picking that up as much now, so whether it's settled down a little bit or maybe it's just, second impression going a little bit better. But yeah, nice sort of spice there. But we'll come back soon and share our thoughts in greater detail on the first third in a moment.
Yeah, let's just let this burn in for a couple of puffs and see how the flavours change and see what we can pick up.
I think so.
Okay.
Cheers.
See you in a bit.
Well, we've come up to the sort of midway through the first third, end of the first third. Mike, what have your impressions been so far?
Very good draw once again. I mentioned it before. The burn's looking immaculate, nice and clean. Good volume of smoke. It really does give you a nice sort of nice mouthful of it. Big creamy smoke. The slight dryness that we mentioned from the first time we tried these is starting to become a little more apparent on the front of my palate, a little bit along the sides. There's that slight astringency here. I'm feeling a little bit sort of puckering. Still good flavours though. A little bit on the woody side for me. Not a bad comment at all. Just that's sort of one of the things I'm picking up. And the pepperiness is still there for me as well.
I'd probably say there's a bit of a sort of a salt and pepper sort of flavour profile coming through. The dryness is there, probably not as much as when I first had this cigar with you 2 months ago. But I'm also picking up a bit like a dried lemon sort of flavour profile, hay, grass clippings. But there's something in there, something a bit zesty. That
like
sort of complements
almost like a mild citrusy
mild citrus with that pepper and salt that I mentioned is making this quite enjoyable so far. And as you said, draw's perfect. good volume of smoke, which is always enjoyable with a cigar. But yeah, that's how it's burning.
Yeah, it's
My
pretty,
ash fell off a little bit, but otherwise, going very, very well.
I suppose now the challenge is to keep my ash intact,
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
as we should all.
Welcome back, guys and girls. We're now sort of up to the middle point of this Room 101 hit and run collab between Matt Booth and Robert Caldwell. For mine, that salt and pepperiness is still there somewhat. I mentioned before there was a sort of a dry lemon, sort of hay, grass clippings flavour coming through. That's dissipated somewhat, and what I'm getting now is a bit more woodiness. There's a bit of cedar, a bit of oak in there. Very light, mind you. But otherwise, smoking very nicely. Mike?
And certainly that sort of initial dryness in the mouth that I was getting on the draw is just, it seems to have sort of waned a bit. I'm not feeling the same level of dryness. Still oodles of smoke. It's just, once again, the construction's fantastic on these, but interestingly, the style change for Matt, I noticed some of his other lines were a lot heavier than this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, we were mentioning off camera that obviously Matt Booth departed from the industry for probably a few months, maybe a year max, I think, before he was called back.
It's like 9 months.
9 months, yeah, it wasn't really a break at all. But obviously quite different from Matt Booth's other creations. The standout, my sort of personal favourite Room 101 cigar was the Namakubi Ecuador. Full-bodied, and I love the Roxo format as well. A small ring gauge cigar, a bit of a firecracker, in my opinion. So quite a distinct change, and obviously that's Robert Caldwell coming into the mix as well. Obviously,
Yeah.
I don't have that much experience with Robert Caldwell cigars, but Mike, you've had a few. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a couple. From my experience of Rob cigars, the Eastern Standard, Connecticut. That was a nice cigar, quite mild in comparison to Matt's regular style. You like the Namakubi? I thought it was a great standout cigar. One of my later favourites was actually the Uncle Lee. I managed to get a couple that were just beautiful, oily, dark, and fantastic. And there was the sort of Ranfler style. Matt, I'll have to ask you someday how you come up with these names, man. They're fascinating. But yes, this almost seems to be a middle ground in terms of body. From the heavy of Matt Booth to sort of the milder style of Robert Caldwell. So I think it's working really well. I certainly enjoy this, yeah.
Absolutely, no, it's going well, and we'll check back in and give you some final thoughts when we get to that final third. Cheers. Welcome back. We're approaching the final third here with the Room 101 hit and run Caldwell collab. Mike, final thoughts on the cigar?
Nice stick. It's been an enjoyable smoke. Would definitely buy a couple more of these, probably maybe a box split or something. Just a nice cigar. Definitely worth having a couple of these in your collection. Yeah, beautiful smoke. This for total, I think we were smoking the Robusto. Yeah, great size, good mouthfeel. It's a good cigar.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd echo those sentiments. Definitely very enjoyable cigar. The salt and pepperiness that I mentioned earlier has come back somewhat, but otherwise, lovely cigar. I'd pair it, interestingly enough, probably because it is sort of I'd classify it as a light to medium bodied cigar. I'd pair it with maybe even a champagne, an Earl Grey tea. I think anything too heavy might drown your palate out, so you might not be able to taste some of the flavours. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a tea would be a good call. For me, on the alcoholic side, probably even just a nice light lager. Just once again, something that wouldn't overpower it. I was thinking more of a medium body than a light to medium, but yeah, good cigar.
Excellent, very good.
I mean, so far I think we've been about 45 minutes up to here.
Yeah.
So
decent smoking time, I think, for a Robusto, and obviously we've cut out everything in between that's sort of not relevant to the review. When I would probably classify this as a cigar that I'd have sort of even a morning smoke, but definitely middle of the day. Probably not a cigar I'd have after a big meal. But then again, everyone's different. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, you wouldn't need. I know some of the heavier cigars, you kind of need a bit of a feed before you indulge. But This is a good cigar to smoke sort of during the day. I don't think you need a sort of preamble or a big feed for it before you have this. Pretty much pick it up and smoke it, man. Enjoy it.
Absolutely. Well done to Robert Caldwell and Matt Booth, and welcome back, Matt Booth. Nice cigar to get back into the game with. So well done, and we'll catch you around the traps.
And I'm looking for more new releases from Matt. I heard there's the Truth that's coming up soon, so we'll reach out to a few contacts, see if we can get some stock, and who knows, maybe do another review on the next lines that are coming up.
It'd be rude not to.
It would be.
Cheers, guys.
Have a great day, guys. Stay smoky.